Tonight's episode of the 31st Lap Podcast is brought to you by DIRTtrackdigest.com. If it's on dirt, it's on Dirt Track Digest.
This is the 31st Lap Podcast, recorded live in the studios of FingerLakes1.com in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. And now, your host, Chris Marquardt.
Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this edition of the 31st Lap Podcast. So excited to have you guys joining us along for the ride tonight, episode number 253 on deck. We've got Stephen Ovens joining us this evening. He's Skyping in, and then we've got Dave Marcuccilli on the line as well, turning initial focus before we get real deep into things to that 358 Series race that's coming up at Utica-Rome on Sunday. Dave's going to be in competition there. I'm also going to recap some of the stuff that we finally got the chance to see over the last week. Land of Legends finally getting a race in. Outlaw Speedway not quite so lucky. Woodhull getting a race in. Utica-Rome thus far not able to get anything on track yet. And real quick, we'll check in and see how things are going with Steven at home. He's in the Turn 5 live studios, right?
Yeah, that's what the Skype account's under. And we don't exactly do the show anymore, but the account still works. That's a good thing.
I like the walls.
Yeah, man, we're always adding new stuff. I posted on social media a little while ago that I just acquired the sail panel and quarter panel off the 20th championship car from Billy Van Pelt last year. So. We've got to make some space for that.
Yeah, that's cool. That deserves some wall space, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the Danny Johnson panel?
So the Danny Johnson panel is off of one of the first orange cars that he had with Chris Generelli. Mm-hmm. I was fortunate enough to be a lucky bidder on that, and also picked up a 9H panel from back in the HBR days with Matt Shepard. So, and then what you can't see over on the other side here is the Van Pelt quarter panel, and I've got an entire right side of Casey Pavlik's number 18.
Nice.
So we've got all sorts of stuff working.
That's cool. You've been working this this season. We haven't got to summer yet. It's if we ever get to it. You've had the chance to work a little bit at Land of Legends. How's that been going?
It's phenomenal. Paul Cole actually called me last night and said, you've had a couple of days to think about how things went. What did you think? I said, it was everything and more what I thought it would be. It's just they're really taking their whole media campaign and everything with Mike and Mel Thomas and Matt Thomas with DirtTrackDigest.tv. That brings the production value up about 1,000%. And I feel very fortunate to be a part of that team and be a very small piece of what they've got going on.
So at this point, that's all you've got on deck, right? You're not going to be doing any of the any other periphery tracks or anything like this, focusing locally at Land of Legends?
Yep, 100% focus is on Land of Legends right now, and I got to say that a big reason why I went there was, I get to just focus on being an announcer now and working with the production crew. I've shed, PR responsibilities. I've been grooming Megan DePay to take over at Woodhull for the last 3 years now, and so I'm helping her along a little bit in her transition to that new role, but she's been there for 3 years. She knows what's going on, so I've been able to really just kind of focus on Canandaigua stuff.
Dave Marcuccilli having some new focus here in as we get closer and closer to the full-blown efforts of 2019. Dave, he is waiting on the line. He's breaking away from work a little bit to hang out with us some as he gets ready to run the 358 Super DIRTcar Series race at Utica-Rome on Sunday. And judging by what the weather says, there's a 50% chance that we'll see you get on track. Dave, man, welcome to the show.
All right, thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit more about how your season has progressed so far. We looked at a couple weeks back when we had John talking about some of the transition that you're going to be taking on this year. And now in talking with Dean Reynolds, it looks like you're going to be running the full 358 series this year.
Yeah, that's our plan to run that whole series. They made it easier for somebody like me to run that complete series because I don't have to it's not going to like Drummond and all those tracks that are
right.
like 7-8 hours away from here, whatever the distance is. It's a long ways.
Sure.
And so the schedule isn't that bad. I didn't realize it was so doable for me till I really looked it over.
The one thing that I like about, well, there's a number of things that I like about Dean now being in that position that he's in with DIRTcar Northeast is it has really put some of the touring efforts into perspective. Dean has such a flair for getting grouped weekends that are manageable. They're going to the right tracks for what the cars are. They're not making any extravagant jumps up to tracks that the 358s don't really need to be at, things like that. And he's always done such a great job with the schedule with Empire Super Sprints. Now we've got the situation here with the 358s, and I really think that that's going to help them generate some followers.
Yeah, I think that before it was tough. I think they were broken up into regions before. I'm not 100% sure. Because I didn't follow it, so I didn't pay too much attention to it. But they made it definitely a lot easier now. I mean, I almost think we go to maybe like Cornwall and then like Mohawk or something like that, and that's something that should have been done before, even with maybe the modifieds and stuff, because those tracks are so close to each other. Race one night at one and one night at the other. I think that's the way it is on the schedule, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, Mohawk was usually part of a 2-race back-to-back, but I can't remember where the other race was.
Yeah, like I said, I haven't quite studied the schedule all the way yet, but I know that just as far as just looking it over quick and making the decision to do it, that it's something that I'm looking forward to, because I always enjoy doing the sportsman stuff. And so this is definitely a different challenge, and looking forward to it.
What's the weekly program going to look like at this point?
Fulton will be the focus of like our weekly track as far as every week, with the small block car, and then Mike's big block car will be basically every race at Wheat Sport, and then a lot of some of the tour shows and stuff, which it's been terrible because I had 2 big races within an hour of my house, get rained out. So that was kind of tough, and we haven't done much racing at all. I got 3 cars in the shop, and I've only raced once in each one of them, and then got some practice in and stuff. And Mother Nature's been a little bit tough to us this year, and I want Mitchin to get some seat time to get better, because you can't get any better with the car sitting in the garage and it raining out.
Sure. It hasn't been easy, huh, Steven? Trying to get races in this year?
No, not one bit. I mean, it's crazy that we're coming up on the middle of May now, and some tracks have only got 1 show in, if you're lucky enough to have been able to have 1 show in. It's just been absolutely relentless here, and I don't even want to say it, Chris, but tomorrow is looking much the same.
Yeah. Not promising. I can't remember what it was. I think Woodhull did this here last year, the year before, and Utica-Rome ended up having to jump in that boat a couple years back, where they had so many rainouts that they weren't getting anything done, so they ended up moving to like a Tuesday night or a Thursday night program. How long are we going to go before we start seeing some of that midweek stuff crop up? I think Woodhull just tried to do that.
Well, it's funny you say that. You and I are on the same level today, because driving home, I was thinking about the fact, and I was going to make a post on social media tomorrow if Outlaws, unfortunately, if they lose one tomorrow again, there was a new track promoter / track owner who really stuck his neck out in his first year promoting and went with a Thursday Night Thunder race just to get the season started. And that guy was by the name of Tyler Seary. And I'm thinking that 3 years later, same situation, weather just not cooperating no matter what they do. Can he pull the rabbit out of the hat one more time and throw a Thursday Night Thunder in? And, I mean, I feel like, back in 2016, that was a home run. I think it could be a home run again, but, there's certainly a lot of risk in doing that too. So it's just been really hard on everybody.
It's a big gamble. I mean, Utica-Rome has been trying now for almost a month to try and get the doors open there, and obviously they haven't had any luck. And Utica-Rome was such a staple of the 358 program there for a long, long time, going back to 2018 to get the last race in for them with the series. So when Matt Shepard, of course, won that, and then it was about a 7-year gap back to Matt Williamson when he won the last attempt at the 358 Tour at Utica-Rome. That, of course, was rained out. Hard to believe, right?
Yeah, that's just it's nuts, man.
That track has been dealt a shitty hand for a long time.
Yeah, last year was rough.
They were forecasting like almost no chance of rain Sunday, and we were at Wheatsport and the sun was shining. We loaded up, left Wheatsport, and we got there, and all it did was rain the whole time we were there. Then we turned around and came home.
I got there at 2:15, and it started raining at 3, and it didn't stop till I got back to my house at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, and it showed like 15% chance of rain.
That number steadily got higher. It was 15, then it was 20, then it was 40. And I was talking with Derek McGrew from DKM Race Car Chassis, and he looked at the ground, and he goes, "Have you ever heard of a stone forecast?" I kind of shrugged my shoulders. I didn't really get what he was going at. And he said, "You see that stone right there? If that stone's wet, it's 100% chance of rain."
That's true.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. You've had some success at Utica-Rome before. Moving up into the 358, does that change much? I mean, it would strike me that you've got a much different notebook to fall back on versus when you had the crate cars.
Yeah, well, this is all different. So we struggle with trying to figure out what gear to run there, and I've started out the year with similar setups, but we're the 358's on a different shock package with me switching to Integras for the modified. So I'm trying to figure out what's the right shock package with those on, and now with trying to run that left side Panhard, which I never ran with a Sportsman.
Right.
And we've been kind of we went to Wheatsport and tested a little bit with that, which if we would have known Utica was going to rain out, we would have hung around there longer and tried some more stuff. But it's a different feel, especially that left side Panhard. It feels a lot different, but I feel like that we're close. We kind of came out of the box with a pretty decent setup that was competitive. But at Fulton we were good, but we drew one of the worst numbers and started in the back of a heat, and then
right.
Starting 14th in a field of very good race cars isn't good. It ain't. I know it's not sportsman racing anymore. It's very hard to drive to the front. I kind of just worked my way up to 9th, 10th, and then just kind of hung around there the whole race because there's just so many good cars, and you need to get that car really good in order to drive to the front. And I'm racing with guys that have been doing it for a very long time, so just hoping that we get the car good, and then I feel like I can drive it when it's good. So we're just working on that part.
The 358 class is coming back, and the sportsman class has been so strong for so long, and it served its purpose. Now you've seen a bunch of different drivers from the sportsman class that are willing to jump up to what is now a little bit more affordable option with the 358 compared to what it was several years ago. And now with the user-friendly schedule, getting all those guys to move up, it's serving its purpose. The sportsman is feeding the 358s, and the 358s is going to stand on its own. And then hopefully after a little bit of time with a schedule like this that they've put together that is user-friendly and they can keep the costs in check a little bit, some of those guys will then in turn jump up to the modifieds, and we'll be back to where we were back in 2003, 2004, 2005, when that was the whole idea of it, bringing the sportsmen along and trying to get them to feed up one another to the modified side. Does it seem? I mean, it's premature at this point, but when you look at the number of sportsman guys that have made the jump up to the 358s, and does it seem like to you, Dave, with the communications that you've got with other guys in the division, that's the direction, that was the catalyst? Did it work that way, or was it just they were bored of the sportsman car and wanted to move up?
Yeah, it's I don't know. I think some people, that's their ultimate goal is to move from the sportsman, say, to the modified, or whether it's 358 or big block. And the the cost difference is quite a bit different.
Oh,
but
yeah.
you can get big blocks that are, relatively decent in price and stuff. And but the small blocks aren't that bad. That I have one now that we bought that was kind of used, but yet had almost no laps on it and stuff. And then right now we're working on getting another one from Brian Donoff. Since we plan on running the series, that we'd like to have a motor sitting there, a backup motor and stuff.
Right.
But it's still expensive, and I obviously I couldn't afford to do it without the help of the sponsors and stuff like that. But yeah, it's I would say I don't know whether they're bored of it or not, but some people that's just what they want to do, and it's something that I've wanted to do for a long time. Which I said a long time ago that 358 racing was something that I was very interested in doing, but I didn't have the money back then anyways, but there was no 358 racing around here, and then now with Fulton going 358 and Utica-Rome and stuff, there's I'm hoping that places like Wheat Sport start having a few more 358 races and other tracks do as well.
Well, that's certainly with the trail schedule out there the way that it is, Stephen, you'll agree that did help quite a bit, having a number of tracks switch over to the small block program all at the same time, and it gave those guys the opportunity to race without having to buy a separate car and separate motor just to chase tracks all over Canada without any place to really race at home.
Yeah, definitely. If you wouldn't have been able to make this happen if it had just been, one track that was really willing to stick their neck out a bit on this. So, I think that they really approached this whole thing the right way to get people on board to really grow this and make it happen. I'm surprised at how quick it has caught on and expanded, and this is just the beginning. I think there's a lot more growth to be had here.
The series is going to start this Sunday at Utica-Rome Speedway on May the 12th. Utica-Rome hosting the St. Lawrence Healthcare 100. The trail is going to then take over a month off before they race again. June the 26th at Can-Am, and then June the 27th at Fulton, back-to-back. Then we've got another 2 weeks off before racing back-to-back at Cornwall and Mohawk, and then another over-a-month break before heading up to Plattsburgh on the 20th of October. Then it's not until after Labor Day before they race again, Can-Am and Mohawk on the 7th and 13th of September. Then we get into Utica-Rome on Tuesday night during Super Dirt Week on the 8th of October. The 9th of October is Weedsport. The 10th of October is the Hurricane 100 at Brewerton. And then the 12th of October is the Super Dirt Week event for the 358 150 lapper booked there. And then the season will conclude the 19th of October at Brockville, Ontario. So it really doesn't get super dense. You look at a third of the schedule is happening after the 8th of October, and they're done by the 18th. That's not too bad when you look at somebody who's trying to travel, trying to juggle a regular day job, somebody who's trying to juggle weekly obligations and things like that. In a lot of these events, the way that they're grouped back to back with a doubleheader on a weekend, it certainly makes it a lot more enticing than what it used to be.
Yeah, it does. Like I said, when they did like Cornwall and Mohawk, those places are 15, 20 minutes from each other, if that. And that's smart thinking, and I've always thought that they should have done that even with the Sportsman, because the Sportsman had Cornwall and then they also had Mohawk too, and I think the big blocks do the same thing and stuff. So that was very smart of them to do that stuff. Plus, they're tracks that run on, say 400 tires, so you're kind of for right rears, so you're already on, a track, already working on, racing on harder tires. So it's a good thing to see.
Any thoughts on it, Stephen? You started to have us a couple thoughts on that too.
No, I think that the way they've got the schedule lined up is really perfect, because you're trying to attract teams that some teams may be moving up from the Sportsman ranks and going out on a full out assault of races all summer long all over the Northeast in Canada. I think they've really been very strategic and done a nice job with how they put that schedule together.
We'll see more on Sunday when we get ready for the St. Lawrence Healthcare event scheduled for Utica-Rome Speedway Get online, jump on there. You can find all the action, Utica-Rome All the action will be also streamed live, DirtTrackDigest.tv as well. That's also where you can find all of Steven's action. Land of Legends Raceway streaming on Dirt Track Digest TV weekly. I wish that Tyler would get on board with that program, because I think it'd be nice to have a package here in the Finger Lakes where you can see action Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
I think that would be I think that would be badass, man. I really do. I think that, to be able to have that kind of lineup, like you said, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 3 tracks that, are different shape and size, are produce different racing each night, with different, really different groups of drivers. There are some that cross over, but what an expansion that would be. And I agree, but I also know that, there's definitely a bunch of things to consider with that. And I speak on that perspective coming from a racetrack that is kind of tossed the idea of possibly doing it back and forth. And at the moment right now, before the season started, there just wasn't enough pros to, kind of overweigh, some of what's viewed as potential cons to doing that. I personally, I love it. I think it's a great thing. One thing that really sold me on the whole idea is the fact that, when you're trying to attract new race fans, and every track, every series is trying to do that, one way, to get new fans to come visit your facility and see your product, you've got to get your product in front of them. And this is one way to do that. How many times do you go to a concert or a concert venue without doing your research first or listening to the band? I mean, who would go to a concert for a band they've never heard of before?
Right.
So I mean, I think that's a good comparison to say, well, for $2 or $3 more than the general admission ticket, we can watch it from the comforts of the man cave or the comforts of our living room. And, if we really like what we see, we want to go see it in person. I mean, I want everybody to come see it in person, to see it at the racetrack. There's no other experience like it. But we have to be realistic when we're talking about trying to grow our sport and get it in front of new fans. And, before they're willing to take the plunge to bring the whole family out, give them a video feed and show them. And the live look-ins do that as well, without them having to make the commitment of, the full price to watch it that night.
Well, in my experience with live streaming events and things like that, you don't lose your local market nearly as much as you probably think that you might. When the weather's questionable, yeah, they might not come to the door, but if the weather's questionable and you're going to call off the race anyway, you didn't lose anything. They're still going to come, because you can't beat being there. You can't sit in the man cave at home and pick dirt out of your ears. You know what I mean? It's just not the same. The experience isn't the same. They're going to come to the track. The difference being, of course, that you now have a reach that is across the United States. It's up and down the East Coast. You can get to all these different fans who might end up making it a destination trip to one of the special events. They want to pair it with a trip to Oswego. Sunday before they go back home, they come over to Utica-Rome, or they come in early because they want to see the supers at Oswego. They hit Outlaw Friday night. There's a bunch of different ways that you can see those pieces fitting together, and it's a struggle sometimes for me to hear the argument, well, we don't want to lose our local fan base. You won't, because if it's racing, people would prefer to be there. They want to be there in person, and you nailed it. If they can scout the game first and see what they're getting themselves into, it's a no-brainer after that. You've got them hooked.
Chris, I'll give you a great example here. Saturday night when we did the RPM Raceway live look-in from Land of Legends, I clicked on the video real quick while we were in between heat races and just looked at all the different people that were watching and commenting. Mm-hmm. And I threw a comment in that feed and said, hey, if you're watching this live look-in, tell us where you're watching from, because I just my own curiosity.
Right.
We had people from as near, and I say near, but Coudersport, Pennsylvania was one. I thought, wow, that's a pretty good distance away from Canandaigua, New York. But then I kept scrolling, and I saw Waco, Texas. I saw Chico, California, Mooresburg, Tennessee, Beaumont, Texas, Sioux City, Iowa. And the one that really floored me, until Paul Harkenreiter tipped me in as to why, we had fans from Australia that were watching Jordan Thomas. I don't know if it's fans or family. It's one of the two. But we had folks from Australia watching our live feed from Canandaigua. Now, is somebody flying from Australia just to come to Land of Legends Raceway? I don't know. But if there's people that are watching from Coudersport, Pennsylvania, that want to take a trip on a Saturday night to a track they've never been to before, they've already got a preview of what they're going to see. They can see what the track, what the action is like, who the players are. In this the other night, it ended up being a 46-minute clip of the Patriot Sprint Tour heat races. But again, they got to see some of the most powerful machines that you're going to see at this track, and they got a preview of it to see what they could see if they're there in person. So it's crazy the reach that had on Saturday night.
We've done that before, just trying to get a roll call of where people are watching from when we did the stuff with Crash Course Demolition Derby podcast. And we've had Japan, Poland, Brazil, France, Germany. And immediately it's kind of like, wow, this is an anomaly. And the biggest input, Brazil apparently has a big Demolition Derby community, and it wasn't that far of a stretch. But same thing with the banger racing in Great Britain. But otherwise, a lot of those countries that came off as anomalies, like it's just a bot that's watching, they were servicemen and women that were stationed overseas that were looking for a little taste of home. And they happened upon that on their social media in between their duties defending our country and maintaining peace around the world. So that was really cool that they were able to tune in and watch for a few minutes too. And yeah, it's neat to see the countries, but it was even more special to be part of something that helped them feel a little bit more connected to home.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a pretty cool honor right there.
Dave, have you got any of the packages? Have you watched any of the races when you're not working on the car or heading off to the track?
I think I watched the Utica-Rome feed before.
Yeah.
And stuff, but like I watched some of the dirt races, as far as Dirt Vision, which is basically the same thing and stuff like that. And there was just a race not too long ago that we watched. The one the Shepherd won down in Delaware.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. You know what I mean? That was on Dirt Track Digest and stuff. So that stuff allows, me, I like it. I think the stuff is a good idea. I don't think it hurts somebody that's, 15, 20 minutes away is going to stop them from going to the racetrack. But it allows people that can't make it there and stuff to be able to watch it and stuff. So it's nice to see more of an expansion of this stuff, the dirt racing being, live streamed, and I will, watch whatever I can. It's nice to see.
Well, that Short Track Super Series race that was in Georgetown, and then Matt also won at Delaware International down in Del Mar with the Short Track Super Series here recently. He basically went undefeated in the month of April. He won every race that he started. He won through the month of April. So either way, Dave Marcuccilli wasn't going to be in the grandstands to watch that race, but because it was on a stream, be it Flow Racing, be it Dirt Track Digest, whatever, just being that it was available, you got to watch it instead of waiting for the press release to come out the next day.
Yeah. So it's nice, and I'm not the only one, obviously, but stuff like that, it is nice, and I always thought that there should be more of it out there because dirt racing is very entertaining to watch, compared to that, the asphalt stuff that's on Sunday, which is obviously dying when you look at their stands, because the racing's just not good, So,
right.
But modified racing has always been good and will always be good. As far as dirt racing goes, it's always entertaining. It's always a guy starting the back a ways and working his way up, and in the races, unless it's that Georgetown race, I believe that took the modified feature 2 hours to run because everybody had to pit for tires, an unusual thing. But, it's nice I'd rather watch that stuff, that's for sure.
If you count the number of flat tires, that they went through?
The American racer was very happy, and the racer themselves were not happy. That was a disaster to watch. I don't
think American Racer was very happy. I don't think that's not the way that they want to make money. That's not necessarily something that they want. I don't think.
No, but they're still making money. They're still selling tires. So it's not their fault that the track is the way it is. But I do know that American racers are not like a durable tire. They wear out fast. And it seems like they race on a lot of racetracks that are tough on tires, and they seem to chew away fast. I mean, I think Jason Simmons sent me a picture. What was it? Not even 15 laps into the Sportsman feature, and his right rear was bald and flat already.
Right.
So they're just not as durable of a tire as, say, Hoosiers are. They seem to be able to handle those hard tracks a lot better.
The race itself, man, about 25 laps, and then we sort of hit this wall. It took about 40 minutes to get to lap 32, but then after that we got a pretty entertaining finish with Stu Fries and Ryan Watt chasing down Matt Shepard in that one back when they were at Georgetown. It was a fun one to watch for sure. You're going to be – I'm trying to think of what your schedule was when we talked last time. Are you going to have any races where you're on American Racer tires?
Just on my Sportsman car.
Just the Sportsman car.
Yeah, which I'm planning on racing, going tomorrow to Outlaw if the weather cooperates, because my plan was to go to Brewerton in the big block, but obviously that's already been canceled, so we'll probably go there because I still kept one of my Sportsman cars, and
right.
I love the race, and I would do it for a living if I could, but I'm just apparently I'm not that good, to be able to do it for a living, or lucky enough to pick up a ride where they want to pay, but. If I can get a chance to get in my Sportsman, I'll race that also, and that's the plan tomorrow. Patience.
Maybe that full-time ride is yet to come.
Well, I mean, I got a ride with Mike, but it's not like a ride where I can quit my job.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I remember we talked before that you were teaming up with Mike, and that relationship, it was pretty much an ideal situation. It gives you a chance to get into a big block, gives you a chance to work on the car. Everything is really aligning the right way for that. How's that gone since the last time we spoke?
It went good. We went down to Can-Am and was able to run with a lot of good guys, a lot of guys that have been doing it forever. Going down there and be able to time trial second and finish second in the heat and start 10th, and kind of just got the misfortune of a flat tire early on, and just kind of seemed to kind of hang around near the back the rest of the race. But that race was tough. I think the race took like an hour and a half. It was just a lot of people apparently liked running into the Uke tires when we were there, because that was I don't think there was one actual wreck that whole race other than people clipping Uke tires, which seemed to be very popular when we were there. So, but I was happy. We went out. The goal that going there was to qualify and run all 100 laps, and I did that, and it came close to finishing the top 10, and I was looking forward to these races, these big races at these tracks that I've run well with in the Sportsman, and obviously Mother Nature didn't cooperate with that. Me, I kind of wonder why these racetracks, and I think have done in the past, somebody's done to where they look at the weather and it's like, listen, the weather looks like shit for today. Why don't we just move the show, one more day? And, Outlaw was a perfect example of that. It was beautiful the day before and the day after, right. But I don't know the logistics of that was running the series. But to me, if they moved it a day, everybody that was going to show up is still going to show up, So I don't know. That's not my decision, but it's something that they thought that they should possibly look into.
We'll let Dean worry about that.
Yes.
Well, I hope you get the race in down at Outlaw. I know. I think pretty much everybody at Outlaw hopes the race gets in down at Outlaw.
Yeah, all the tracks around here have been dealt a lot of misfortune with Mother Nature. Most tracks only have gotten one race in so far, and here we are. We're approaching the summer months, and just itching to go racing. Like me, I've only raced 3 times, and like I said, I got 3 different cars that I can race in 3 different divisions, and I've I've only raced each of them one time, and it's kind of disappointing a little bit to have like a big block ride and not be able to race it.
Well, in terms of prepping the 358 car and prepping the modified and getting used to those, even those opportunities have been taken away because the test and tunes didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, some of them happened close to me, but a lot of them got canceled also that I had planned on going to and stuff, because I was looking for a maximum amount of seat time. Like
Sure.
I said, you can't get good with the car sitting in the garage, and I want to run good and I want to be competitive, and so turning laps is what I want to do, but still, practice isn't the same as racing.
No.
It's a little different. You're kind of by yourself and stuff, so it's easy to turn good laps. But it's different when you get out there racing with other people. So, but it's still nice to get a feel for the car and figure out what the car likes and what the car doesn't like.
Sure. In terms of the live streams, does that help you recruit sponsors?
What's that?
In terms of the live streams, going back to that for a second, does that help you recruit sponsors?
I would say that somebody could use it as a tool to help with sponsors. To the more eyeballs that are on the cars, I think you could probably use it that way. I'm probably the worst sponsorship hunter ever, so it's hard for me to comment on that. But I would say these people that are really good at tracking down sponsors and stuff probably use that as part of their resume, with saying that this stuff is being seen a lot more on the computers and stuff like that.
Makes a good point. Weather permitting, God willing, Mother Nature complying, we're going to see Dave Marcuccilli driving the 358 Super DIRTcar Series race at Utica-Rome Speedway on Sunday. Make sure you get out to the track. If you can't make it to the track, jump on DirtTrackDigest.tv. You can watch all the action from the Super DIRTcar Series 358 Tour event at Utica-Rome online. Dave, I know you're at work. I appreciate you coming on the show, and I got to tell you, Dean, when I messaged Dean and said, who should we talk to, the first name that he came out with was yours, and I was like, well, we've got a relationship with him, so I'm pretty sure that'll be a good start. But he made a good recommendation. I hope you guys do well this weekend.
Yeah, well, I thank Dean for that, for thinking of me. I chat with him a little bit back and forth on through Messenger and stuff like that. Usually if I have any questions, he's usually pretty good at answering them all for me and stuff. And, I appreciate him even my name even popping into his head for something like this. That's nice. Any sponsors you want to make mention of? Just All-Star Contractors, Mohawk Northeast, Bicknell Race Stars, Storman. Those are pretty much the main people that are making this happen. Awesome, Dave. I know you got to get back to work, man. I appreciate you coming and hanging out with us for a little bit, and I hope to see you on Sunday. All right, thank you. I hope so too. We'll see you later. There goes Dave Marcuccilli. Thanks a lot, Dave. We'll catch up with Dave a little bit later on. Glad he was able to make some time and come and hang out for a little while. So, Steven, are we going to race this weekend or what? At this point, we've already lost Brewerton. I feel like Outlaw, as much as we can hope and wish that it happens, is probably not too far behind. We're going to have another weekend like the last several?
I certainly hope not. Saturday, I can speak for Saturday. Saturday looks really good. But I will temper that by saying so didn't last Saturday. And when we opened the pit gates to start allowing people to pay to get in, we were standing in drizzle. And we're like, what is going on? Like, there was 0% chance of rain, or maybe 5 or 10%. Well, we got the 5 or 10%. And if you looked on the radar, everything was so low to the ground that radar wasn't picking it up. So I was watching everybody standing there with their phones, looking at the radar and saying, there's no green here. There's no green on the radar. What's going on? Well, it was crazy. And I got to say, I think we were as close as a track comes to losing the show, because at one point it was just a steady, heavy mist. And at one point we almost lost the track. I mean, we had to have some drivers come help us out and give us a hand. We had all the tow trucks, all the push trucks for the sprint cars out there. and we got the track back. But I think we got as close to skirting the line of just calling the show as you can get. And, props to Paul and Greg Emerson and Greg Hickson for, putting their nose to the grindstone and sticking it out, because, for what the weather was, the crowd was actually pretty good. And, for a show like that, it's always a big risk when you've got weather like that. But at that point, when it started misting and it wouldn't stop, you've got a pit full of cars. You've got a lot of folks either already in the grandstands or out by their cars. They're there. So you got to go for it at that point. I mean, you're at that point when we're sitting there at 5 o'clock saying, I think we're going to lose the racetrack. And then it stopped all of a sudden. Then it's like, all right, we got to go for it now.
We had Packers on the track at Utica-Rome, and the mist was getting heavier and heavier, and it got to a point where it was no longer packing and sealing. It was just generating more mud. So we pulled all the Packers off and went and filled the water truck full. Jacked the thing right full to get the extra weight, and it never even made it back out onto the track with the effort of trying to pack it. We had a couple of the drivers, and I was walking around getting data on the drivers that were there. They said, what's going to happen? They're waiting for a call, just like anybody else is. They don't want to stand around in the rain if they don't have to. I was just telling them the most logical thing that I could when I was talking with them. Just kept telling them we're 25 minutes away from hot laps. Get the drivers in the cars.
Yep. No, absolutely. That was exactly, because at that point, it's what do you do? It's just everybody was coming in at Land of Legends on Saturday, and everybody, like I said, I drove in from Rochester from doing some work up there, and the mist followed me from Rochester all the way to Canandaigua, and I thought, man, for what the weather forecast was, this is not at all what it was supposed to be. And then all the drivers got there, and the mist that they had gotten for several hours had started to really, and the rain the night before, the pits were wet, and people were looking around, finding where are we going to pit everybody. Hats off to a lot of the sprint car guys with the Patriot Sprint Tour that came in. We had them pitted all over the place, behind the grandstands, out, where a lot of the folks will drive in and park just outside of Turn 4. We had trailers and big rigs everywhere just to make that happen. And it took a whole lot of at first, when guys first got there, it's that old thing, Chris, where you call the racetrack and the racetrack says, "Oh, it's sun shining, it's beautiful, come on out," and then you get there and it's raining. Right. but truly, that was exactly what happened. Was the sunshine I don't think was really out most of the day, but that heavy mist never started until late afternoon, and then it was just that annoying, just enough to keep wetting the racetrack, and it just wouldn't stop. And then for whatever reason, it finally did, and it never came back the rest of the night. And I remember sitting in the tower looking at Wendy and Greg Emerson, and we got the track back. They're coming out for hot laps, and I turned to them and said, "Wow, this is actually going to happen. Like, we're actually going to race. I thought we were done for." I mean, Chris, how many times have you been at an event where you're almost ready to start, you get weather, and then you just know, before the call's made, you just know this is not going to happen.
Right.
And I think all of us in the tower thought we were well past that point. But, that talk about a show that probably shouldn't have happened, and it did, just because everything lined up just perfectly.
Over there at the Land of Legends, Chuck Hubing got the win in the Patriot Sprint Tour 25-lapper. That was worth $2,000 to win. Paulie Colagiovanni was next. Jordan Thomas, Joe Trenka, Jordan Poirier rounding out the top 5. Matt Shepard won the modifieds. Again, hard to believe there. 35 laps the distance for them, $2,000 to win. Justin Harris was next with Jimmy Phelps in third. Eric Rudolph and Billy Dunn rounded out the top 5. Kane Bristol, he won the 25-lap Sportsman main over Mike Stanton and Paul Guerreri. Andrew Smith and Matt Guerreri were in the top 5. Alex Payne won over Billy Payne and Dalton Martin in that 20-lap B main for the Sportsman. Johnny Klosek won the 305 sprint feature over Jeff Trombley and Darryl Ruggles. And then Adam Depew won the street stock feature over Mark Manutolo and Glenn Wertenauer. This weekend, Land of Legends is collecting donations in support of Mercy Flight, which is right there out of Canandaigua. So that's going to be cool to get out there and support them. You were talking about where to pit everybody. Did you see the problem that Fulton ran into on Saturday?
I didn't see any pictures, but I probably don't have to imagine. They had 3 sportsman features. That is insane. That's insane.
They had 61 sportsman cars signed in. Just sportsmen, not to count all the other classes that they had on deck.
Yeah, I mean, and Chris, think of that. I mean, that was what, a Saturday night show. That was not a series race. That was not that was a Saturday night, kicking off the season show for Fulton, and they had 3 sportsman features. That was incredible.
And they had to do that a bunch of times last year, break it down into 2 and 3. And
yeah,
there was a couple of debates on what the best way to do that is. Do you just randomize it, and whoever races wherever ends up wherever, and off you go with it? Or do you try and handicap it so that you've just got the strong cars, you've got the mid-grade cars, and you've got the people that are trying to learn? And I don't know if there is a right answer, because if you're slanting it where it's just if you get somebody who's really, really new but really, really good, and they go on a tear and they start winning a bunch, then do you move them up so that they're running against the mid-card guys? And then that screws up their points chase? Or now do you have to make 3 different sportsman divisions at a given track? I like the idea of the wild card element of it, where it's random, where everybody's just racing against everybody. They're all out there, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, I mean, back when I raced 4-cylinders at Outlaw, there was a point in time where we had so many 4-cylinders, they did split us up into 2 features, and it was random. You never knew who was going to be in what feature. It was just how things worked out qualifying through the heat races. But that was my first question. When you just said that, that's my first question as somebody that used to do track points at a racetrack, is if you do split them up into certain groups, how does that affect the points? If a guy in that middle tier, all of us, like you said, strings off 4 or 5 wins in a row, all of a sudden now your point race skews a little bit. So yeah, that's I don't know. It'd be interesting to hear from them, kind of their thought process on how to do that, because there's a couple different ways to do it, and I don't know if any of them are the right way to do it. Who knows what the right way to do it is?
Well, I suppose you only have to do it once, and you'll find out what the right way to do it, because anybody with a Facebook login is going to let you know where you messed up.
Yeah, no kidding.
Over at Fulton, Chris, Larry White got the win in that one. Pat Ward was on his heels the whole race. A big wreck on lap 19 kind of reset the field. Joe Shields flipped during that. There was 10 laps to go, and Larry White took over and basically checked out. Pat Ward was with him, but couldn't get anything on him. Todd Root even got up in there to battle into the top 3, but it was just about a second lead at the line for Larry White over Ward, Root, Ryan, Arthur Bonnat, and Ronnie Davis. Again, we talked about the 61 sportsman cars that were signed in, and man, they had some good racing too. Matt Janchik won that one won the first one over Alan Fink and Jackson Gill. Jack Meeks won the second one over Chris Mackey and Amy Holland, and then Joe Hall won the third over Rick Miller and A.J. Miller. Let's see here. I know they had a sportsman features where Brandon Cretin won the novice feature as well, and Chris Fleming ended up winning the late models. So they were pretty busy over there. It was a good one. 61 sportsman cars. I mean, that's more than some Super DIRTcar Series sportsman trail races get.
Yeah, and that is in the last year and a half. That's not nothing new to Fulton. Their division there has been growing right along, and even with and think about that, Chris. Even the switch to 358s, and I don't know how many guys chose to go the 358 route, but this is 61 cars even after that transition, and guys having the opportunity to kind of move up if they choose to do so. And now they still have 60. I mean, that's pretty wild. One thing I wanted to mention, you went over the Land of Legends results. I wanted to give a shout out real quick to Johnny Kolasek. What a race that was on Saturday night. He drove. I mean, this is a young man who, come up through the ranks. I think he started out at Paradise Speedway. And I think it was 600s that he started in the micro sprints. he drove around Darrell Ruggles, who's won just about everything in the 305 over the last couple of years, and drove around last year's CRSA champion Jeff Trombley and former modified competitor and winner Jeff Trombley to get his first ever win at Canandaigua. That race was toward the end of the night, and I know a lot of people, got up and after they saw the mods and the sprints, the folks that came to see those got up and left, and I don't blame them because of the weather. We started behind as it was. But if you left early Saturday night, what a race you missed. And I just want to give a shout out to that young man because he put it up on the cushion and said, it was one of those, we're either going to win this race or I'm going to have to explain to Mike Emhoff that I broke his race car. I mean, his pass of Jeff Trombley on the outside of turn 2, he looked like Chuck Hebing.
Yeah.
And you don't throw that term around lightly.
Sure.
at Land of Legends.
World of Outlaws NOS Energy Drink Sprint Car Series is going to be in town May 19th, coming over to Weedsport Speedway. Gates are going to open at 4 o'clock on May 19th, racing to follow at 7. The Super DIRTcar Series is going to be at Weedsport May the 27th for the Heroes Remembered 100. That race is going to pay $7,500 to win. The DIRTcar Sportsman and the CRSA Sprint are also going to be on the card. Gates at 3, racing at 6. Each event has that fan pass upgrade available. If you jump online, just hit the ticketing link on weedsportspeedway.com. You can get all the information about that. That deadline fluctuates depending on when the date for that particular race that you're buying the tickets for does sit. And that's the only trip that the World of Outlaws Sprint Cars are making to New York this year. So make sure you get over there and check that race out again, May the 19th. And then the Super DIRTcar Series is going to be in action again for that Heroes Remembered 100 over Memorial Day weekend. Did you want to talk about the race at Outlaw?
Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't one. They rained out.
Yeah. That was unfortunate. I was planning on making the trip there. I've got, for Friday nights, I don't really have a whole lot on the schedule, so I got a couple of reserved seats over there this year, and I was looking forward to taking that one.
Are they upstairs in the announcer's booth?
No, sir. I've got a couple of seats top row, just under the VIP towers, and I don't make it there every week certainly, but there are probably 5 or 6 shows a year that I'll get over there too, and just go and kind of remind yourself why we got into this thing and right. Be a race fan. And I'm not gonna lie, I was really looking forward to going over there on Tuesday to see the Super DIRTcar Series show, but Mother Nature's just not been kind to them at all.
No, I was battling some pretty serious nerves when I got to Utica-Rome, and I've done this 1,000 times. It's not like it's anything new, but it's a new track in front of new owners that I hadn't worked with before, and new announced team that was up there, new people in the tower, and man, walking around the pits, I was stumbling nervous. So when I first got there, right, they gave me the official shirt. I got to wear this in the pits, so that way the other folks that are working there don't give me a hard time because nobody there knows me yet. I saw one pro stock, and there's another pro stock in the back corner. I go over to it, and orange number 6, and I walk up, and as soon as I get there, the driver comes around the nose of the car and sticks his hand out. He goes, "I'm Brian Carter with DIRTcar. How are you?"
Wow.
Because I saw your shirt. So I said, "Yeah, I'm announcing here," and no one. It was kind of cool. He had his pro stock there, and it was going to be fun to see him race. But again, we've beaten that point to the fact that yes, Utica-Rome didn't run Land of Legends Speedway modified Sportsman 305 sprints, street stocks, and then they got the Adult Demolition Derby on deck coming up on May 11th. I'm sure you're elated about that.
I think it's going to be a good time. I have never seen a demo derby at Land of Legends before. I know they've had them in the past,
sure.
And with working a Saturday night track, I've never been able to get up to one of those. So I did see video of one last year, and I gotta tell you, Chris, for me not being a guy that's heavily immersed in that motorsports world, I was pretty impressed with the show they put on. So I'm really looking forward to that, and it's finally this week for me is going to be that, okay, this is what a normal show is like at
sure.
Land of Legends, because last week with the weather and the time, we really had to push things right along. So that's another thing I'm looking forward to this week is just kind of get back to looking at what a normal show looks like. And maybe normal's not the right term, because that the show is evolving every week, as Paul tells me. So it's going to be fun to see that. And hey, last week we had 21 street stocks. Now, is cancellations at Outlaw, did that help that number Saturday? I'm sure it did. But I'm interested to see how many of those guys we're going to have on a weekly basis, because to start out with 21 was really awesome. So
is Glenn going to run up there weekly? Did you get a chance to catch up with him and see if that was something he'd planned on doing?
I did catch up with him. He's probably not going to be a weekly guy. I think his focus will probably be Outlaw, and right. I know he really wants to travel, around as well. And why not? As successful as he's been. But it was interesting talking to him, though, Chris. He's raced at Land of Legends before, but it was in the late model days when he was, winning everything in the late model. So he had never been in a street stock there. And, him and Adam Depew and Mark Manutlo put on a great battle. And, if things had gone a certain way in lap traffic, I think we might have been talking about Glenn Reitner's first street stock win at Land of Legends. He was that good on Saturday. So, but when you have guys like a Jimmy Grant who finishes in the top 5, who has predominantly always been an Outlaw, regular, he's going to try and make as many shows as he can there this year. But I thought that was a great run for him, because Canandaigua's not been a regular place for him. That family's bread and butter has always been Outlaw Speedway. So to see him kind of come into unfamiliar territory and have a top 5 against the competition that's there at Land of Legends, that was pretty good for him too.
You're talking about the late models at Land of Legends. I mean, that's Canandaigua Speedway days with the BRP late models, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
That's cool.
Absolutely. So we're there's a lot of cool things to come. We've got our first Wall of Fame inductees that are coming up. I can't take the top off of that bin just yet, but I have heard who the first one was, and I'm telling you that's going to be very popular. So I'm looking forward to those as well.
I saw Lancaster got sold, so the drag strip is going to operate. You hear anything at all about if the oval's going to keep going?
So I don't think that the oval has a schedule out yet, but I just talked to Dave Buchanan yesterday, and I think he actually announced it on social media today. But he was hired back on as his same role as media director and announcer of the Oval program. So the Oval program's not going away, fortunately. I don't know if they know exactly what that schedule is going to look like. I think I read 6 or 7 races at one point, and I think that's just to help the new ownership kind of get a feel for how things operate there. But I'll be honest, I was nervous. And if you're an oval racer there at Lancaster, I'm sure they were thinking the same thing. Is when you hear that the new ownership group is more immersed in the drag strip, and drag racing side of it, I think it would have been easy to assume that well, geez, what's going to happen with the oval track? And so from what I'm hearing from Dave, it sounds like that's not going anywhere. But they're in the early stages of seeing what that's going to look like. That's
good. I mean, Lancaster, the way that played out, the fact that the place got saved at all is fantastic. The new owners bought a drag strip that happened to have an oval attached to it. And there was some apprehensions there about what was going to happen, but I'm glad to hear that the oval's going to run. And if you're looking for an intimate place to take in a drag race, man, that's the place. You're sitting right on top of the lanes. With the way that track is formatted, so it's an intimate place to take in a drag race, and it's going to be a great place to take in an oval event as well. I was up at Velocity Speedway in Auburn Mall, and I ran into Jim Kronk, and we were kicking around some of the asphalt tracks. Jim is really big into the asphalt world. Spent tons and tons of time at Oswego and traveling with Doug Dodaro, running around with the supers and things like that, and he said that one of his favorite tracks to go to was that one, and he really liked going to Spencer Speedway in Williamson too, which is, it's kind of cool to get some of that perspective. Usually all the people that we talk to are used to seeing cars sliding sideways on dirt.
Oh, definitely. And it's interesting how much crossover there is with guys that if it's got 4 tires and a motor, they're there. So it's interesting to see how many of the folks we know from the the short track world, cross over into drag racing as well.
For sure. Trying to make sure that we covered everything that we wanted to. We were going to try and put a little bit of time into Outlaw Speedway. We should probably at least pull up their schedule and let people know that they're going to put the effort in tomorrow, trying to get one in. It just feels so bad for those guys having zero luck so far this year. Again, coming up on Sunday, the 358 Super DIRTcar Series is going to be at Utica-Rome Speedway. They're going to be trying to kick off the 358 Tour and officially open the oval at Utica-Rome. Little League Baseball night for Outlaw Speedway. Coming up, Modifieds are on deck, along with the Hoosier Sportsman, the IMC Modifieds, the American Racer Sportsman, Street Stocks, Hobby Stocks, and the Four Cylinders. They're also going to be doing the Kids giveaway. Pits at 5 o'clock, grandstands 5:30, racing at 7:30. Grandstand admission for adults, $13. OutlawSpeedwayLLC.com for additional details on that one. So the bike giveaway is always a home run. You can never go wrong. Little League Baseball night, never go wrong. I think one of the best moves that they've made this year, barring one of those outlaw nights that wouldn't get over with until 2 a.m. on a regular start time, is pushing that start time back a half hour and giving people a little bit more breathing room between getting out of work and getting to the racetrack.
I think that was a really, really good move, especially with a Friday night program. And, you and I both speak experience from that track. I mean, back when I was announcing there and trying to drive when we moved down south, to the southern tier here, when I was getting out of work at Sayre at 4:30, 5 o'clock and beating feet home, then trying to get to the racetrack, or when I was working in Rochester, trying to drive to Penn Yan, stop at the house, get changed to get to the track. I was getting there just in time to, see half of hot laps. And, my poor co-announcer, Mel Thomas, was always having to cover for me in hot laps because, when you're working on a Friday, it's tough. And we're just the support guys. We're not the guys hauling race cars and got to have it ready for hot laps and all that.
So on the flip side of that 7:30 start time is the addition of the Hoosier Sportsman class, adding another class to an already stacked card. It puts 7 divisions on the docket for a typical Friday night, plus the Bandits, which start the show. So you're looking at it as much as 8 features. If things start going awry, it can turn into a super late night, and that's one of the challenges that you don't want to get into. Today's racing fan has an attention span of a casual racing fan, maybe 2.5 to 3.5 hours. A diehard fan, maybe 4.5 to 5. So at 7:30, you got to be done by 11:30 midnight. And as long as they can keep doing that, they should be okay, right? I mean, theoretically.
I would think so. I mean, they have right from the beginning, they've really done a nice job of getting that program put together. There's special races are always tough. But, for a weekly show and even adding the Hoosier Sportsmen, I don't think that, I don't think that they'll have really a problem there at all. I think they'll be able to run that right through. The track has been really good. I mean, daytime races are always hard, but, for your Friday night programs, your track should be good so that you have a short intermission and get right back into it. So, and like I said, I'm looking forward to getting there. I mean, I was all set for Tuesday, but we'll get there whenever Mother Nature allows things to happen.
Yeah, right.
And who knows? It could be tomorrow, because how often have we seen the weather change the day of? So you can't plan your week. I was just watching a video the other day of Kenny Wallace talking about track weather reports and hurting track attendance and stuff like that. The weather changes so fast that, you can't make your decision on a Monday, even though I'm sure some look at it early in the week and, maybe make other plans. But, for us diehards, we're going to be there.
I remember watching clouds that were scraping the tops of the trees at Outlaw. And it was an early season race, but it wasn't an opener. And it was a guaranteed rain out. Slam dunk. Look at the radar, rain out. But nothing ever fell. and we rolled cars for hot laps, and then we rolled the bandit feature, and then we rolled heats, and the whole thing, you could watch it on the radar. It was green head to tail, and then all of a sudden, as you watched it, it just split right around the track, and it just followed the trail of that valley. This was way back, and after learning some of the weather patterns there, it is a absolute roll of the dice. You're at nature's mercy. If it wants to follow around the valley, you're going to be fine. But if it changes its mind, you're done. And that weather radar is not going to give you any indication what that weather pattern might do when it gets to the tops of the mountains.
That's that whole Darrell Waltrip vortex theory, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so.
Oh, man.
I didn't know the bandit cars were fast enough, but I'll buy it.
Hey, man, I can speak from experience. They are just straight flying, man. You get that air whipping up, man, it can happen.
Dollar for dollar, I don't think anybody else has as much racing on a Friday.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree. And you think about it, that's a great program. The facility is fantastic. The racing is always good. Whether it's a short night, long night, whatever. I mean, the racing is always good. That's
right.
never been and that's even before the name changed to Outlaw Speedway. The racing's always been fantastic there, sure. Top to bottom. I mean, and like I said, we talk about leaving early and missing that 305 race on Saturday. If you leave early and don't see the 4-cylinder race at Outlaw Speedway, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. Mm-hmm. That is Talladega 4-cylinders, man. It is wild. I saw it at 5 Mile Point a couple weeks ago. I posted about it on social media. The start of the 4-cylinder race at 5 Mile a couple weeks ago, they were 5 wide and it thinned out to 4 wide, but they were like that for a lap and a half. And somehow they all got away with it. I don't know how it happened, but I mean, it's awesome. I heard them talking about it on the NASCAR radio channel today. They said if you want to see great racing, you got to go and watch your entry-level divisions at X, Y, and Z dirt track. You're going to see some of the best racing of the night in that entry-level class.
All the cynics that tuned in tonight heard you talk about the 4-cylinders going 4 and 5 wide, and you said it was a lap and a half, and all of them rolled their eyes and said, well, how many of them finished? And you were right there to shut them down. You're like, hey, everybody thinned out and they were fine.
Yeah. I mean, there was, from what I remember in that race, there might have been 2 or 3 guys that had mechanical. It wasn't from accidents and wrecks and everything. It was really cool. And I'm probably a little biased because when I was racing myself, that was the brand of racing that our race team could afford to do. But so I'm biased, and I'll tell you that a 4-cylinder race, no matter where you are, is the best race of the night. But in all honesty, it doesn't matter what track you go to, man. They just put on a show, and for those guys, whether the payout's fantastic or they're making enough to pay for their pit pass to come back through the gate next week, those guys love putting on a show. And I think sometimes it's a shame if they get pushed off to the back half of the night, because man, they can really put it on.
I've thought back a lot as you were talking about some of the races at Outlaw, watching the 4-cylinders, and there was one night that stands out, and I don't even remember who won. I think Longacre was still racing at that point in that orange and silver car with a green 89 on it. Yep. I think he was still racing at that point, but the bottom groove wasn't where to be. Everybody went up higher, so it was middle groove and top groove. And there must have been. It felt like there was 35 4-cylinder cars on the track at one time for this thing, and they took off into turn 4. And when you made the reference to Talladega, this was the first thing that popped in my head. They were just strung out side by side. Everybody was clean, and they ran like this for a couple laps, and everybody's just holding their breath, just waiting. Like when this goes wrong, it's going to go wrong. But it never did. It never did. I mean, not going to at all say that they went green to checker that night, but it never went wrong to the point where there was, 15, 20 cars wadded up and only 10 cars were running at the end and half of them didn't have fenders. It was still a clean race.
Yeah. No, and that is really for those cars, that is just a perfect track because you can really get your momentum wound up. And, whether it's, watching the guy that won the championship last year, Adam Austin, or watching any of the veteran guys, and not even veteran guys. I mean, look at Erica Bell. She's done very well for herself there too. It doesn't matter. There are 10 guys plus that can win on any given night in that race because they are so good. And if you get a good start or, pass a bunch of cars early, catch a caution when you need it, it's just that 4/10 mile is really a great layout, and it's really a perfect track to see what those cars can do at their highest level. Sure. The short tracks, I always love watching them at Woodhall too. But if you want to see at the top end what those 4-cylinder cars can do, Outlaw is the perfect place to watch them.
Well, you got the opportunity coming up tomorrow. Land of Legends is going to be racing Saturday, Utica-Rome on deck on Sunday with the 358s. Anything else that we got to hit on?
No, man, I appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk racing and have a little fun. I really appreciate the offer tonight. It's always good to catch up with you, and been fortunate to be able to do so a lot over the years, so I appreciate it.
Well, we're going to do it again in a couple weeks if you're not busy.
All right, man. Sounds good.
I'll hit you up.
All right, man.
That's going to do it for this edition of the 31st Lap, episode 253. In the books, we appreciate Dave Marcuccilli coming in. Wish him the best of luck this weekend. Hopefully everybody gets their racing in and weather cooperates. Wish best of luck to Stephen Evans as he climbs up into the tower for another night behind the mic at Land of Legends Speedway. We appreciate all of you tuning in and listening to us. That's going to do it for us here at the North Park Building at Academy Square. We'll see you next time.